Let's get one thing straight. Everyone now admits Patrick Mahomes is the titan of his era. A man with 2 MVPs and 3 championship rings who towers over every other player in the league. But you weren't supposed to believe in him. Do you remember the 2017 NFL Draft? The Chiefs mortgaged their future to jump to the 10th overall pick, sending the 27th pick, a 3rd rounder, and their 2018 first-round selection to Buffalo, all for a gunslinger from Texas Tech. And the reaction? Lukewarm, if you were being generous, because this is all the so-called experts could focus on. They saw a quarterback from a pass-happy system who, threw for over 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns his last year in college, but they dismissed it as just inflated stats from a gimmick offense. His own father, Patrick Mahomes Sr., was a pitcher in Major League Baseball for 11 years, and Patrick himself was even drafted by the Detroit Tigers in the 37th round of the 2014 MLB Draft. The game of baseball was practically his birthright, yet he walked away from it for football, because Andy Reid, the head coach of the Chiefs, perceived a brilliance that no one else was willing to see. He saw a talent that could unleash any throw from any impossible angle, a mind that processed the game at lightning speed, and a spirit that absolutely came alive under fire. But that first year, Mahomes was chained to the bench. He had to watch Alex Smith, a veteran quarterback enjoying one of the finest seasons of his career, steer the Chiefs to a 10-6 record and a playoff berth, while Mahomes played in a single, meaningless game week 17 against Denver after their postseason spot was already secured. His stats were 22 of 35 for 284 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. On paper, it was utterly unremarkable. But if you actually sat down and watched the tape of that game, truly studied it, you saw the flashes, the insane arm angles, the raw creativity, and that uncanny gift for keeping plays from dying. Andy Reid saw it too, because it was only a few months after that game that he shipped Alex Smith off to Washington and gambled everything by giving the keys to his 23-year-old quarterback. Think about it, most young quarterbacks are handled with kid gloves. They're told to be a game manager, to just not turn the ball over, to rely on the defense and take the easy throws. But not Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid stared at his 23-year-old prodigy and basically said, you know what? Burn the playbook. What followed was something the league had never witnessed before. In 2018, Mahomes' very first year at the helm, he unleashed for 5,097 yards and 50 touchdowns. 50! He became only the second quarterback in the entire history of the NFL to eclipse both 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in the same season. The only other person to do it was Peyton Manning in 2013, which was his 15th year as a starter. Mahomes did it in his first. But this is where the story gets truly insane, because those weren't empty numbers. His completion rate was a staggering 66%. His passer rating was a mind-bending 113.8, and he averaged 8.8 yards for every single throw. He was hitting his target on 2 out of every 3 passes while simultaneously launching the ball deep more than almost any other quarterback, and he was doing it with world-class efficiency. For almost every other quarterback, when their attempts go up, their efficiency plummets. It's just common sense. The more you're asked to throw, the more you're put in impossible spots, 3rd and long, defenders in your face, receivers blanketed. But from day one, Mahomes shattered that fundamental rule. Massive volume met elite efficiency, and he made it all look like it was nothing. He threw for 6 touchdowns in a single game on 2 separate occasions that year, once against the Steelers in Week 2, and then again versus the Rams in Week 11. Before him, only Len Dawson had ever managed to throw 6 touchdowns in a game for the organization. Mahomes matched it twice in his debut season as the starter. He seized the MVP award and, at just 23 years old, became the youngest quarterback to ever throw for 50 touchdowns. He was also the youngest player to win MVP, since a guy named Dan Marino did it way back in 1984. And he accomplished all of this while being sacked 26 times, constantly running for his life behind a defense that was ranked 31st in the entire league. Against all odds, the Chiefs finished with a 12-4 record and secured the number 1 seed. Then, in his playoff debut, Mahomes calmly threw for 278 yards to dismantle the Colts. They won that game, which led them to the AFC Championship, a showdown against the reigning dynasty, the New England Patriots. Mahomes fought like a lion, throwing for 295 yards and 3 scores, but it wasn't enough. The Chiefs lost 37-31 in overtime, and Mahomes never even got to touch the football. His fate, their fate, was sealed by a coin flip. But do you want to know the craziest part of all this? That gut-wrenching loss might have been the greatest thing that could have happened to him, because it seared a lesson into his soul. Being brilliant by yourself is meaningless. This is a team game, and everyone had to rise to the occasion when the lights were brightest. The 2019 season began with Mahomes continuing his reign of terror. Through the first 5 games, he had already amassed over 1,800 yards through the air without a single interception. That performance shattered Peyton Manning's record for the most passing yards to begin a season without throwing a pick. The Chiefs were 4-2, and it looked like another MVP campaign was inevitable. Then came Week 7, in Denver. On a routine quarterback sneak, his kneecap slid out of its socket. A hush fell over the entire stadium as Patrick Mahomes, the most dynamic force in all of football, lay motionless on the field. He would only sit out for 2 games. His backup, Matt Moore, went 1-1 while he recovered. And in his first game back, Week 10 against Tennessee, Mahomes erupted for 446 yards and 3 touchdowns in a heartbreaking 35-32 loss. He didn't just return to form, he came back a man possessed. In the last 9 games of that regular season, Mahomes threw for over 2,200 yards and 11 touchdowns, with a passer rating of 105.3. The Chiefs stormed to a 12-4 record, earning the 2nd seed. But the numbers don't capture what made that year legendary. What happened in the postseason is what defined him. In the divisional round, at home against Houston, the Chiefs found themselves in a 24-0 hole in the second quarter, facing a Texans team that had just pulled off an upset against Buffalo. But Mahomes never flinched. He threw for 5 touchdowns in that contest, 4 of them coming in that very same second quarter. Imagine that. 4 touchdown passes in a single quarter of a playoff game to completely wipe out a 24-point deficit. The Chiefs would storm back to win 51-31, pulling off the most incredible comeback in the team's playoff history and the second largest in the entire history of the NFL playoffs. The very next week, facing Tennessee for the AFC Championship, the script felt dangerously familiar as the Chiefs found themselves buried, down 10-0 early, and then 17-7 in the second quarter. But again, it was Mahomes who clawed them back, putting on a clinic with 294 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, even adding 53 yards and another score with his legs. The Chiefs stormed back to win 35-24, and with it, Mahomes had now dragged his team out of double-digit holes in 2 straight playoff games. Think about that, no quarterback had ever managed such a feat before. And what was his reward? A trip to the Super Bowl in Miami to face the fearsome 49ers. And wouldn't you know it, the Chiefs were in trouble again, down 20-10 with only 7 minutes and 13 seconds left on the clock in the fourth quarter. In that moment, when most quarterbacks would crack under the Super Bowl pressure when they'd try to force everything, Mahomes did the unthinkable. He became calmer. And in those final, breathtaking 7 minutes and 13 seconds, he piloted the Chiefs on 3 perfect consecutive touchdown drives. It was an onslaught of 21 unanswered points that sealed the game, with the Chiefs winning 31-20. His final stat line? 286 yards and 2 touchdowns passing, plus another 29 yards and a score on the ground. He was crowned Super Bowl MVP at just 24 years old, making him the youngest quarterback to ever win both a league MVP and a Super Bowl. Then, in July of 2020, came the contract that shook the sports world. A 10-year, $503 million extension with the Chiefs at the time, the single largest contract in the history of American sports. This was a deal designed to chain him to Kansas City until the 2031 season. But instead of feeling the crushing weight of that money, instead of getting complacent, Mahomes used it as fuel for his fire. In the 2020 season, he was magnificent, throwing for 4,740 yards and an incredible 38 touchdowns against only 6 interceptions, all while completing 66% of his passes for a 108.2 rating. The Chiefs win a staggering 14-1 in the games he started, locking up the number 1 seed yet again. And once the playoffs began, Mahomes was nothing short of a surgeon. He carved up Cleveland in the divisional round for 255 yards and 3 scores before a vicious hit forced him out in the third quarter with a concussion. Despite his absence, they held on to win 22-17, and he miraculously cleared protocol just in time for the AFC Championship against Buffalo, where he threw for 325 yards and 3 more touchdowns in a dominant 38-24 victory. His passer rating was a near perfect 140, completing 29 of his 38 throws. He was playing on another level, and the Chiefs were headed back to the Super Bowl. They were on the verge of history, attempting to be the first team to win back-to-back championships since the Patriots did it in 2003 and 2004. But then came the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. And this is where the narrative gets twisted, because everyone remembers the story that Mahomes had a terrible game. The story was that Tom Brady completely outclassed him, that maybe, just maybe, Mahomes wasn't the prodigy everyone thought he was. But here's the truth they always leave out. The Chiefs' offensive line wasn't just injured, it was an absolute war zone. Their starting left tackle, Eric Fisher, had just torn his Achilles in the AFC Championship. Their starting right tackle, Mitchell Schwartz, was already gone. Their left guard, Kelechi Osemele, was also out. They were forced to start backups at 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. Mahomes was running from pressure on 29 of his 56 dropbacks. That is an unbelievable 51% pressure rate. He was sacked 3 times, hit another 8, and literally spent the entire night scrambling for his life. He managed 270 yards with no touchdowns, and the Chiefs were dismantled 31-9. But if you dare to actually watch that game, you see a quarterback doing everything humanly possible against impossible odds. Yet, as that season ended and the next one began, the whispers started, maybe the league had finally solved the Patrick Mahomes puzzle. The start of the 2021 season was a nightmare. Through 6 games, Mahomes had already thrown 8 interceptions, and the critics came out of the woodwork. Had he been figured out? Had defenses finally caught up? And do you know what Mahomes did in the face of all that doubt? He reinvented himself. Over the last 11 games of that regular season, he completely turned it around. He threw for 19 touchdowns against a mere 5 interceptions, finishing the year with a massive 4,839 yards and 37 touchdowns. His completion percentage was right back at 66%, and the Chiefs finished strong at 12-5. In the playoffs, he was an unstoppable force of nature, until suddenly, he wasn't. He annihilated Pittsburgh in the wildcard round for 404 yards and 5 touchdowns. And against Buffalo in the divisional round, he was the architect of what might be the greatest playoff game ever played. The two teams exploded for a combined 25 points in just the last 2 minutes of the game. Mahomes was otherworldly, throwing for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. With just 13 seconds left and the Chiefs trailing 36-33, Mahomes, from the brink of defeat, fired off passes of 19 and 25 yards to set up the game-tying field goal as time expired. Then, in overtime, facing a crucial 3rd and long, Mahomes found Travis Kelce for an 8-yard, game-winning, soul-crushing touchdown. But in the AFC Championship game against Cincinnati, a familiar darkness crept in. The Chiefs were cruising, leading 21-3 at halftime, but in the second half, the Bengals came roaring back. They reeled off 21 unanswered points, and though the Chiefs managed to tie it at 24 all to force overtime, the momentum was gone. After winning the coin toss and getting the ball first, Mahomes threw a catastrophic interception. The Bengals took the ball, kicked a field goal, and won 27-24. That was 2 straight years of agonizing defeat, and now the story was set in stone. Mahomes was great, but maybe he'd never win another Super Bowl. The 2022 season was the year Patrick Mahomes decided to silence every last one of his doubters. The Chiefs made a shocking move, trading away his number 1 weapon, Tyreek Hill, in a bold roster overhaul. And without his supposed safety blanket, his elite deep threat, Mahomes delivered his masterpiece, throwing for a staggering 5,250 yards and 41 touchdowns. He completed 67% of his passes. His passer rating was 105.2. His yards per attempt was an incredible 8.1, and he led the entire league in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and QBR. He won his 2nd MVP award, and this time, there was absolutely no debate about who the best player on the planet was. But the true test of his greatness came in the playoffs, in the divisional round against Jacksonville. It was in that game that Mahomes went down, his ankle twisted underneath him in a way that made every fan's stomach drop. You could see the agony with every step. He could barely plant his foot, yet he still managed to conjure up 195 yards and 2 touchdowns, dragging his team to a 27-20 win. A week later, facing Cincinnati in the AFC Championship, they had the nerve to call his home Burrowhead. But even on that shredded ankle, Mahomes stood his ground and unleashed for 326 yards and 2 more scores. The Chiefs gutted out a 23-20 victory, and just like that, He was headed back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2020. And so the stage was set for a collision with the Eagles in the Arizona desert for the Super Bowl. With his ankle still a wreck, Mahomes threw for a quiet 182 yards and 3 touchdowns, but this game was never about statistics. It was about one defining moment. With the score deadlocked at 35-35, Mahomes put the entire game on his shoulders. On a critical 1st and 10, he scrambled, a gut-wrenching run that seemed to put the Chiefs right where they needed to be for a game-winning kick. Then, a crushing holding penalty against the Eagles sealed their fate, setting up the kick that would give the Chiefs a 38-35 victory. That performance earned Mahomes his 2nd Super Bowl MVP. By the age of 27, his resume was already legendary. 2 championships, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and 2 league MVP awards. Only the great Joe Montana had ever achieved such a feat. But as the 2023 season approached, a storm was brewing for the Chiefs. They had already dealt away their most explosive weapon, Tyreek Hill, shipping him to Miami the year prior. What was left was arguably the weakest group of receivers Mahomes had ever been forced to work with. Travis Kelce was now 33 years old, and the 3 receivers topping the depth chart were MVS, Kadarius Toney, and Skyy Moore. Not a single one of them had ever been a true number 1 option, and the whispers grew louder. Could he really do it all by himself without any elite talent to throw to? They had also drafted Rashee Rice, but he was just a rookie, and nobody dared to place the weight of a franchise on his shoulders. The result? Mahomes finished with 4,183 yards and 27 touchdowns against 14 interceptions, the fewest scores of his starting career in a full season, and the most times he'd ever given the ball away. For a player of his caliber, it was a collapse. But that wasn't the story people should have been focused on. The real story was that the Chiefs still managed an 11-6 record in his starts, a record that was good enough to win their division yet again. They had only secured the 3rd seed, which meant he would have to do something he'd never done before: win a playoff game on the road. If he wanted any shot at returning to the Super Bowl, he'd have to single-handedly carry his team through hostile territory. Facing Miami in the wild card round, in the bone-chilling cold of -4-degree temperatures, the most frigid game ever played in Arrowhead Stadium's history, Mahomes carved them up for 262 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then he went into Buffalo for the divisional round and threw for 215 yards and 2 scores, silencing the crowd in a 27-24 classic. His final test was against Baltimore in the AFC Championship, staring down the league's MVP, Lamar Jackson. He calmly delivered 241 yards and a crucial touchdown to secure a 17-10 victory. All that struggle, all that doubt led to a familiar place: a Super Bowl rematch against the 49ers. But this confrontation would unfold very differently. The game was pushed into overtime, the first Super Bowl ever to be decided under the league's new playoff rules. And with the championship hanging in the balance, with his entire legacy on the line, Mahomes orchestrated a 75-yard, 13-play march, ending it with a 3-yard touchdown strike to Mecole Hardman. The Chiefs won 25-22, and Mahomes claimed his 3rd Super Bowl MVP trophy. At just 28 years of age, he now possessed 3 rings and 3 Super Bowl MVP awards, having just captained the Chiefs to consecutive championships. They were the first franchise to go back-to-back since the Patriots of 2003 and 2004, and now they were chasing something no one had ever touched: a three-peat. As 2024 began, the Chiefs had a singular, all-consuming obsession: immortality. No franchise had ever managed to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. Not the Steelers of the 70s, not the Cowboys of the 90s, not even the Patriots dynasty. The Chiefs dominated the regular season, finishing 15-1. Mahomes passed for 3,928 yards and 26 touchdowns with only 11 interceptions. His completion rate was a solid 67.5%, and his passer rating stood at 93.5. These weren't his most explosive numbers, but they reflected a cold, calculated efficiency. This team wasn't about blowouts anymore. They were about methodically breaking their opponent's will. In the divisional round against Houston, Mahomes was surgical, throwing for just 177 yards and 1 score. The Chiefs won 23-14. It lacked flair, but it was more than enough. Next up was the AFC Championship against Buffalo, the heavyweight bout the entire world was waiting for. It was Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, and once again, Mahomes rose to the occasion. He passed for 245 yards and a touchdown, while gashing them on the ground for 43 yards and 2 more scores himself. The Chiefs survived, 32-29. Mahomes had now fought his way to his 5th Super Bowl in just 6 seasons, leading the first team to appear in 3 straight championships since the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. And they were the first reigning back-to-back champion to ever get a chance to defend their crown for a 3rd consecutive time. History was a single game away. Then came the Super Bowl in New Orleans, a rematch against the Eagles from 2 years prior, a game the Chiefs had famously won 38-35. But this time, everything was different. Mahomes threw for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he was also picked off twice. They beat him down, sacking him 6 times for a loss of 31 yards, and the Chiefs could never find their footing. They had no answers. They had no magic left. The Eagles crushed them, 40-22. It wasn't even competitive. The dream of a three-peat was dead, and the Dynasty had been denied its ultimate prize. Now, reeling from that Super Bowl humiliation in 2024 and a truly catastrophic 2025 season, nobody knows what to believe about the future of the Chiefs. Mahomes is trying to recover from a year where his team collapsed to a 6-11 record. It was, by a staggering margin, the worst season of his career as a starter. He barely threw for 3,500 yards and only 22 touchdowns against 11 interceptions. For the first time ever, his passer rating dipped below 90. The Chiefs failed to even make the playoffs for the first time since 2014. And the reason nobody knows what comes next is because Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL. The grim reality is that he likely won't see a football field again until the middle of next year. To make matters worse, Travis Kelce is almost certainly going to retire, and there are whispers they'll be forced to trade away Chris Jones in the offseason. Everyone's declaring the end of the Chiefs dynasty. But you know what? I'm not sweating it, because this isn't the first time we've heard this story. Remember back in 2021 when the so-called experts claimed he'd been figured out? Or in 2023 when they swore he'd never hoist another trophy? And each and every time, what did Mahomes do? He answered the call. The Chiefs organization reloaded, surrounding him with new talent and shoring up that offensive line. They completely rebuilt the defense. And now, at just 30 years old, Mahomes is stepping into what should be the absolute peak of his career. History tells us that most quarterbacks find their zenith between the ages of 30 and 34. Just look at Tom Brady. He snagged 3 championships after he turned 37. Peyton Manning secured his 2nd ring at 39. Drew Brees was slinging it for 5,000 yards at 37 years old as well. So, if Mahomes is only now entering that prime window, if he's just about to hit his stride, then the rest of the NFL should be absolutely petrified. Consider this. Tom Brady played until he was 45 years old. If Mahomes just makes it to 40, that's another decade of dominance. On his current trajectory, he would shatter the 600 touchdown mark and soar past 70,000 passing yards. Honestly, if he retired tomorrow, his place in history would already be sealed. Of course, you can't talk about greatness without the comparisons. And the name that always comes up is Tom Brady. All right, let's go there. Let's put the statistics right next to each other and see what they really say. In his initial 8 years as a starting quarterback, Tom Brady put up 28,355 yards, 197 touchdowns, and 86 interceptions. He completed 62.5% of his passes, had a passer rating of 89, and captured 3 Super Bowl titles. Make no mistake, those are legendary numbers. First ballot Hall of Fame stuff, without a doubt. Now for Patrick Mahomes' first 8 seasons. He amassed 35,939 yards, 267 touchdowns, and only 85 interceptions. His completion rate sits at 66%, with a passer rating of 100.8. And, oh yeah, he also has 3 Super Bowl victories to his name. Let me spell it out for you. Mahomes has thrown for 7,500 more yards and 70 more touchdowns with 1 less interception, all while boasting a passer rating that is nearly 12 points higher. And he's already tied Brady in championship rings during that span, but with more Super Bowl MVP awards. Now, I know what you're thinking, but the game is different now. It's a passing league. The rules are built for offense. And you're not wrong. But even when you account for the era, even when you measure him against the guys he plays every week, his superiority is undeniable. Since 2018, the year Mahomes took the reins, nobody in the entire league has more touchdown passes than his 267. And when the lights are brightest, in the postseason, it's not even a competition. Since 2018, Mahomes has 46 playoff touchdowns. Who's in second place? Josh Allen with 25. Mahomes has almost twice as many. He's also thrown for 5,814 yards in the playoffs. Again, the next best is Josh Allen, who's barely scratching 3,000. And wins? Mahomes has 17 postseason victories. The runner-up, Josh Allen again, has 9. That's not just a lead, he's nearly lapped the competition in wins, too. No quarterback in history has reached 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, and 30,000 passing yards faster than him. He stands alone as the only player in NFL history to post 5,000 passing yards and 50 touchdowns in one season before his 25th birthday. He's in truly elite company as one of just 3 quarterbacks to ever hit 50 touchdowns in a single year, sharing that space with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. He's also one of only 12 quarterbacks to break the 5,000-yard barrier in a season, and he's managed that feat twice. He's the only person to ever do it multiple times before turning 30. He owns the NFL record for the most touchdown passes thrown in a single quarter of a playoff game, with 4 of them against the Texans during that 2019 championship run. He is the youngest to ever win a league MVP and a Super Bowl, the youngest to claim multiple Super Bowls, the youngest to be named multiple Super Bowl MVPs, and he holds the highest winning percentage in playoff history for any quarterback with at least 10 starts at a staggering 81%. And think about this. He is the only quarterback to ever claw his team back from double-digit holes in consecutive playoff games. He pulled it off against the Texans, the Titans, and the 49ers on his way to the 2019 Super Bowl title. He is, without question, the greatest quarterback of his generation. And who knows, maybe one day, just maybe, he'll actually catch Brady. So there's the evidence. If this doesn't permanently alter how you view Patrick Mahomes, I don't know what will.